All right, welcome back to another episode of the Masters in Travel podcast. Today, I'm super excited because we're diving into one of my favorite aspects of running a travel advisor business, and that is fam trips, but specifically self-fams. And this is something that I invest in for myself and for my team. And recently, we had an incredible experience in Peru. So today, I brought along my amazing team members, Kelsey and Ellen, to share how these trips are more than just destination knowledge. In this episode, we're going to talk about why self-fams are key to our success, how they benefit our team personally and professionally, and the special moments that help us grow stronger as a company. So whether you're a solo advisor or part of a growing team, you won't want to miss this deep dive into the value of self-fams and how they can transform your business. So, Kelsey and Ellen, thank you so much for being here today on the podcast.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us.
And everybody knows, well, you can guess. I don't know that they had like a big choice in being here. And I invited them, but I also kind of just put it on their calendar. So it was like a nice gesture for them not to complain too much. But I really kind of felt that this would be a fun episode to unpack and explain our experience for other travel advisors, other people who are either considering doing a self-fam and or, creating these types of experiences for their team if they have it. And I think that we learned a lot, just number one, going to Peru, but also kind of what this type of experience can do for us individually, can do for us as a team, and can do for us, like help us with our clients. So I kind of wanted to just unpack it, have a really honest conversation, meaning you can say whatever you want and it will not be held against you. So with that in mind, let's dive in. I want to kind of know just overall when you were like, hey, or when I said, hey, we're going to Peru on a fam, what were your first kind of thoughts? Like, why were you excited? Were you not excited? Were you like, what are your thoughts on kind of like traveling, but as like a fam, not a vacation?
Yeah, well, I can go first because Ellen's already been there. So spoiler alert, she already knew what we were stepping into. Yeah, I think when Bree and I were emailing a bit, trying to figure out where to go, I think it first off revealed for me how biased I am towards certain places. I'm like, oh, let's go to Europe, let's go here, let's go to these countries. And we kind of landed on Peru, or it was kind of random, but we just kind of got there in the end. A lot of it, honestly, was about flights and kind of how quickly we could get there and stuff like that, which is important when you're factoring in like multiple people coming from multiple different areas. But I was excited and a little bit not apprehensive, but I just didn't really know what to expect. Like I've only ever traveled to Argentina within South America. That was probably 7 years ago. And I would say like South America doesn't have a big draw for me just naturally. And so I was excited, but was like, oh, I guess I'll just kind of see what happens. And I think it was kind of cool because I got to just show up without a lot of preconceived notions, without a lot of I hadn't done a lot of research, honestly. I was a very bad travel advisor. I was more of a client and just kind of rocked up and was like, cool, what's happening on this trip? And that was actually really, really cool. And I think it was a really cool insight into what sometimes our clients get to experience, having everything taken care of for them, having just a brand new country, brand new culture, all that stuff. So excited, but to be honest, like wasn't really sure what to fully expect.
And I think that that's actually a good point in terms of why one of the reasons at least why I chose Peru, a little bit in the terms of expanding our knowledge. Also, where I thought that we had a pretty strong partner and I wanted to understand more of what the experience was like. So as a business owner on my end, and when I do kind of think through the self-fams, this would be like what I kind of initiate on my end, not what I'm invited to or anything like that. But like I'm initiating it and I'm paying more for it and all of those types of things. I am kind of thinking through, hey, where's somewhere that maybe is newer to me? That's an option. There's always going to be like the places that we sell a lot of and we want to know better. There's also sometimes like something to be said for a place that we maybe don't know well, but we think it could have a lot to offer. And so what would be the benefit of us really feeling more comfortable and confident, knowing that destination, being able to kind of suggest it to the right clients and feeling really strongly that the the service of our in-country providers, all that stuff is going to really, really deliver. So I think aside from it's a nonstop flight from LA and all of that kind of
Nice.
thing, I was all, and time of year, all of those things played into it. The fact that I had already done 2 trips in the summer to Europe and I kind of was like, let me go somewhere else. All of those things played a role, but I think that there was something to be said for that, like, newer to us destination that I felt had potential. And Ellen, for you, it was not a new destination. You were like the OG Peruvian of the group. So for you, what was kind of like that thought of, hey, here's somewhere I have been before and I actually spent a lot of time and I've seen Machu Picchu and I've done all the things, but going back in this capacity. So as a fam trip, as something where you are going to do it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Well, as you guys know, I'm new to the travel industry, so I didn't really know what a fam was until like last year when I think Bree, you went on one, and I was like, "What is a fam?" And so I
Why are
Googled
we
it, and
saying
so
this word? Yeah. All of the acronyms in
yeah,
our industry are super
oh,
confusing, right? Like, why
yeah,
couldn't we
yeah.
talk like this?
But yeah, like it's such a cool, I think, thing to do as a travel advisor. And for me, like Kelsey, I didn't know what to expect. Even though I've been to Peru before, I was there as a college student
Mm,
volunteering. And I think that was very different because, I had a college student budget. Definitely not the way that we traveled to Peru, but I think it was actually beneficial to have that other experience to compare it to because that n- not having the a previous fam experience before kind of like made me realize, okay, this is the difference of like when people plan your trips versus like this is, how I plan my trips. So it
yeah,
was
yeah.
very beneficial in that way.
That's a really good point because I always say, like, one of my obviously selling points is how much I've traveled. Like, I am well traveled. But when you stop and think about it, all of the places that I traveled before this was my career, the travel looked a lot different. And I attempt to now travel in the same way that I plan travel because that helps me be better at my job. But in the same way that, like, you went to Peru as a college student, and I've been to like all these countries in my previous career, going back to them with that new like vision, or kind of like you're looking at it different, you're experiencing it different, it actually is a totally different experience, and
Hmm.
it comes out in a totally different way than even if you've been there before. So that is a really good point. Kelsey, as you kind of have been with Milk and Honey now for 5 years, and thank you for that. You were new to the travel industry as well when you first started, and
Yeah.
now you're an OG and you've been, in the game, and you now kind of have more of a role as a travel designer and more in touch with the like trips that we plan exclusively like for our clients. How has attending FAMs, and this is our second one, so it's not like I'm saying we've done 20, but
Yeah.
how has attending FAMs as in this way enhanced kind of your ability to speak to clients, design trips for clients, kind of just be more of that like for, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's being able to speak with confidence when you are on a consult with someone. And I
Mhm.
was thinking about this more, like we talked about this a bit while we were in Peru, but I think Peru specifically is for a very, it could be for a lot of people, but in my mind, it's kind of for a specific type of person that would be interested in seeing it, that has a certain sense of adventure, things like that. And so I
Yeah.
think actually being there and then feeling that and experiencing it, doing a hike, being like, oh my God, this is a hard hike. Like, not everyone is going to want to do that, and actually experiencing things like that, that gives you those insights. So then when you are on a call and someone says, I've been to Iceland, I've been to all these places, and you're kind of like ticking off in your head, okay, oh shoot, what else can I offer them? Like they're maybe really well traveled, or they've already done all these hikes or whatever. That being able to just speak with confidence and say, like, I think you'd really like Peru, and here's why. And I think there's
Mhm.
just only so much, like, we all know that there's only so much that you can glean from Google or
Mhm.
from chatting with a local partner. Like, it's great, it's helpful, but there's we're all in this industry. We all know there's something very tactile about actually being in a place and experiencing it for yourself. So I think being able to be on a call and just being able to speak confidently and say, I think you'd really like this place, or I think you wouldn't like this place, and here's why. And it just hopefully helps to like build that trust on the front end with the client.
Yeah, that's a great point because I think there is a very large, it's not all of our clients. Like a lot of people are very like, hey, here's where I want to go, here's what I want to do, I'm certain. But there's a lot of conversations where people are open and they're like, I don't know, here's what I like, or here's the time I have to travel, here's the budget that I'm working with, all of these different factors. And it's on our end to be the actual advisor and say, hey, here's a consideration that I think would work really well. And so the more we have to pull from and really speak from experience in those kind of consultations, the more opportunity we have to really be good matchmakers and be like, this experience you're really going to love, and here's why. And here's why you might not think this is a good opportunity for you. But having that firsthand knowledge is really, really great.
And I think people like hearing your stories. Like
Yes.
saying like, oh, I think this tour would be really nice for you, or you could do this, is a very different experience than saying, I did this tour. You're telling me you love cocktails. Like, okay, great. We'll recommend this is, just it's a very different, I think it's like, I don't even know the right word, like a bonding vibe right off the bat.
Yeah.
Establishing that rapport on a call, especially up front. And it carries all the way through. Like it carries down to Ellen emailing about restaurants saying, we went here, like have the Lomo Saltado here. It's really good. Like that carries all the way through. And I think so much of what we do is like a feeling relationship trust business that it is just an incredible asset to be able to like actually say, I've been here and I think you'd like it.
Yeah, for sure. And Ellen, you are our client experience manager. And so you are client facing as well. And normally in a little bit further down the line, but you really kind of interact with clients to make sure their experience is seamless, to make sure that like all of the things that are really going to matter for them particularly, and also to just complete their trip are taken care of. And you're taking into consideration their, the type of traveler they are and what they like and what we can add to really kind of enhance their experience. So how do you think that you personally being able to travel on a fam like this and go to Peru or wherever it is we plan to go next helps you kind of in your role as a client experience manager, either manage expectations or enhance their experience or anything like that?
Well, I think prior to the trip, with my background in PR, I felt like I knew my role. I knew how to do the job, make our clients feel like they're taken care of when it comes to the concierge portion of their trip. And so it felt like my role was kind of like this, like the checklist of straightforward client requests that I spent time going through each one. But I think after the trip and actually experiencing the type of travel that we sell, I think I understood that while it doesn't have to be the way that I travel personally, it is an amazing experience for people who want to have that, because it really is different to have like everything thought out from, having the right partners greet you first thing in the airport, telling you what you have planned for the day while all you do is like munch on the snacks in your private car. Yeah, right. Yeah, Machu Picchu. So to having your dinner set for that night so you don't have to like go on Google Maps and like find out restaurant that is rated really well. And so I think that participating in this fam allowed me to experience that, which has been important in reshaping my understanding of the role. I no longer think it's like this just a checklist type of role, but it's also a meaningful contribution to the overall experience of luxury travel, which sets it apart from other types of travel.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you feel that way. That's really awesome. Okay, so this is shifting gears a little bit because I think that we all learned and gained something, not only from being in Peru, whether that's our first time or revisiting it, and our experiences just specifically and tangibly. But the other kind of reason that I'm starting to really grasp the importance of self-fams, but also the importance of including you guys when possible in experiences like this, is that there is the part that's the destination knowledge, right? There is the part that's like, let's learn about the country and the destination and the partners and all of that. There's also the team aspect of it that I think is really important. And so I'd love to discuss that, because whether or not advisors are at the point where they have their own team, or this is something they're considering in the future, this idea that you can include FAMs as a way to make sure that the people who work with you are really satisfied with their job, or they see it as an investment into them, or it motivates them to want to be with the company long term because these are great perks and allow them to not only enjoy what they do, but like a perk of a travel job is to actually travel. Wow, like that's really amazing. So I think that I started to really see how this type of specific investment is beneficial for us doing our jobs better, but also it hopefully makes you guys feel appreciated and really a part of what we're doing. So how do you kind of like do you see it that way? Maybe because maybe I'm just like talking, you're like, no, I'm just here to collect my paycheck and go home. Do you see it kind of like is a benefit to working in the travel industry, just kind of like off the jump? Either one of you.
Well, I think that, like I said, I felt like I knew what my role was, but going on this fam made me realize that I can find ways to excel and make things better, because, actually experiencing the product, where you can anticipate client needs better, right? And so for me personally, it reinforced my passion for travel, not just personally, but professionally as well. And I feel more connected to my role. And I think that benefits the clients because I advocate for them more. Like Kelsey said, you want them to go to this specific restaurant to order this specific dish and go there at this specific time to like enjoy the sunset or something like that. So yeah, I think I definitely personally benefited from it by being more invested in my role.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the bonding side of it, I think it's just really easy. Like the type of work we do can be very oriented. And I think all of us enjoy that and are good at it. And so that's not a bad thing. But I think sometimes we miss that eventually you'll burn out. I think most people will burn out if you're just doing tasks all day long and there's no human connection, or you don't feel appreciated or things like that. And so I think this is such a perfect way, because obviously we're in this industry because we love travel. We love sending people on travel. I mean, none of us are trying to be influencers, so we're not in that kind of a vibe, but we enjoy traveling ourselves, all that kind of stuff. And so I think that in addition to helping us connect with clients, more like Ellen is saying, I really do think it helps us connect with each other. It's obviously, we all know, anyone listening to this knows that you have to be very specific about who you travel with. It can be a real make or break situation. So I will say, if you're considering doing self fams, make sure you like your team, because otherwise that could break it apart. But I think that it's just a really great way to connect. And I think we're getting better as a team at, like, with each fam, of understanding each other better, understanding personalities, introvert, extrovert, understanding like boundaries, and like in a good way of just like, hey, we don't all have to eat dinner together tonight. We've been together all day or whatever. And just putting some of those things in place so that it's just a really healthy, and everyone's like looking forward to, kicking off the next day and things like that. I think it's just a really great way to connect. And absolutely, it's a perk and, a wonderful way to like reward your people and make them feel appreciated. And, obviously I think it's always a conversation budget wise, financially. Like, it is an investment. It's not something that can happen every other month or anything like that. But I think it does really incentivize to have that to look forward to. Like at Milk and Honey, we've established kind of a calendar for how we're going to approach what these kind of trips look like and when it happens. So then people can also plan. They can plan their personal trips around it, things like that, which I think is really helpful. So I just think there's so many aspects that make it a wonderful incentivizing thing. And it also has so many other, it's just such a win-win, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say from my perspective, because, it is true that it's an investment, and anybody in the travel industry as a travel advisor, you're taking part of your revenue, your profits, whatever. And you're like, one thing you are going to spend it on is travel. If you want to, it's like, you can't be a pastry chef who doesn't eat cake or something like that.
Right.
So, from my perspective, it's like, hey, there is a certain part of revenue, of expenses that is going to be travel related. And there's going to be part that is like, hey, here's what's important for me and for my knowledge. Taking part of that and saying, here's what's also important for my team, is the understanding that, especially now in my business, I am not the only one that influences how the business grows and what the experience is that the client has. So if I'm taking on that thought process and that mentality, that it's not just me that's impacting, the client success and how their experience is and what they experience and how they feel taken care of and what we're suggesting. If I'm not the only person responsible for that, it is also important that the other people responsible for that are, number one, like, all in, and number two, like, know what they need to know in order to do the job to the best of their ability. So that's kind of just how I've thought about it, in terms of like, is the investment, the ROI, I guess I would say, is there ROI here? And so part of it is like that. And then part of it is kind of like, hey, I recognize and realize that, for the majority of us, if we're having a team and we've grown to that part in our business, we want good people. And we're also asking for them to kind of see the benefit, right, of not like doing another type of job or working in corporate America or whatever. Like, there has to also be benefits that are unique to this type of work and unique to this type of industry. And so this can be something like that. And to your point, it is tricky, right? Because, like, what if we didn't really get along in person? Like, we're a remote team, and most of the time we're just on Zoom, or, every once in a while we get together. Maybe Kelsey and I live closer to each other, but a lot of times people do work remote. There's not a reason to be in an office. So traveling with people that you aren't around on a daily basis, even if you are, could be challenging. I think we learned that we do have a really healthy dynamic and a good dynamic, and that we actually, I don't know, did you get tired of me? Like, I think we were okay, but I don't want to speak for you.
Ellen and I were practically sharing a bed at multiple points. So if there's anyone I was going to get sick of, it was going to be Ellen.
Right.
Yeah. I imagine that it's like a massive, I'm like just trying to put myself in the shoes of people listening. And I'm just imagining that it's a massive shift if you are either completely by yourself and considering hiring someone, or if you have people that work for you, but they're ICs. And it's like, yeah, I kind of know this person, but not really. They just like send my welcome letters. I imagine it's like a massive shift, but I think it's a gradual process. Like, I think you don't need to go 0 to 100. I would also say you don't need to do a 2-week trip. You can do a long weekend to somewhere. I mean, obviously you have to factor in flight time and all that, but like, I think you could do a long weekend to somewhere that still makes sense for your business. Cause I think that's another massive thing, is like aligning it with the business that you actually want to sell, and not just like doing a trip to do a trip.
Yeah.
But aligning it with something and saying like, okay, we are going to do a long weekend in Mexico City. That's a doable flight from the, US. And it's just a weekend and everyone gets their own room or whatever, like whatever parameters you put in place to dip your toe in the water. I don't think it needs like I said, like Bree and I have worked together for 5 years. Like that's Ellen's been around for 1.5 years now. Like, it's been a longer process. It's not like we just started 2 months ago and you're like, I don't even know your last name.
Yeah.
We already know each other, and that's really helpful. So yeah, I think dipping your toe in the water, because I imagine this could feel like a lot financially, time, interpersonally, like to some people listening. But I think it can be a gradual process. But I would just encourage people that are contemplating this, that it can probably feel, like I said, really overwhelming. But as someone who has only ever been on the employee side of things, like obviously understand that a business owner they have a lot more things running through their mind. They are much more involved in the bottom line. They're much more involved in take home income, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, dip your toe in the water, make it small, but do be thinking of ways to just like encourage your people. And because like the fact of the matter is that like people in our day and age can change jobs as much as they want. Like it really is something that, especially our generation, we like to just go from thing to thing if we're like not happy. And unfortunately, that's just a little bit of like the way that it is out there. And so I think that this is just and I don't say that to be depressing, but just to say like this can be a great way to like encourage your people, to pour into them, to make them feel appreciated, to just give them a nice vacation. I got a week away from being a mom. That was really nice. I got to sleep through the night. That was really lovely. My amazing husband, held down the fort. But I think that it's just a really cool way to encourage your people. And as you are maybe shifting into a team model, it's important to start thinking about some of those things. Maybe if you've never had to think about them before, if you've only ever been a solo person doing your thing, but it's like now you have more people. You've got people you got to take care of. So it's a really cool way to, incentivize your employees.
Yes. It's funny because I think that oftentimes, like obviously we did a bazillion cool things on this trip specifically. Like I felt like it were so many like, whoa, we saw Machu Picchu. Whoa, we did this hike. Whoa, we did ATV rides. Whoa, we like all these really, really cool things. But I think from an interpersonal point like of view, kind of the important things were also just like getting to know each other over dinner and being like, oh, wow, I didn't know that about you. Or, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I feel like I'm more connected to you. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity in a Zoom call or when we're going over our end of year planning or all of those things that have to happen in the business, but don't give you the opportunity to like really get to know people. So getting to know people, I think, is just it's a benefit of working together and really enjoying your work. Also, I would say, so that's like the team aspect. And if somebody's like, hey, I want to do this self-fam and I just kind of want to have deeper relationships within the industry. And so I'm going to invite like other advisors to do something like this with me. That also can be an opportunity to really just like when you're able to break bread and kind of like get outside of like the work talk, it allows for deeper connections and deeper relationships. And I feel that that's something that we were able to have on this trip specifically that was valuable.
Yeah.
In the big scheme of things.
Yeah, 100%. I think I actually wrote down because Ellen and I are Enneagram 1, so we send us questions ahead of time because it's stressful. So I wrote down, sorry, spoiler alert. Like we were just asking about like memorable moments. And I honestly was like, enjoyed this like one team dinner that we had, and that's not the big flashy thing, but it is connecting, it is bonding. And I also was thinking about how it helps so much when you are like, let's say in 2 months' time, it's a stressful time at work. And it's so much of the communication is Slack or email or whatever. And there's like something that's said and it's maybe taken the wrong way, right? Like this happens all the time. It's interpersonal, just in the world. It happens all the time. Not in Milk and Honey. We're perfect, but
you can be honest. I said you could be honest. I'm really bad. I'm really bad at the like fluffy talk.
She is. We're working on that. And that's how we make her take us to Peru.
Yeah.
But I think that when you know people better and you've had some of these deeper conversations, you know about people's history, you know about their family, you know about all this stuff. When those moments come up, at least for me, it helps me go, you know what? I bet she didn't mean it like that. I bet it's because of this, right? And I mean, we just know that in friendships and other relationships that we have. But when you only know someone in such a minimal space and then life gets stressful, work gets stressful, it's so much harder to give people the benefit of the doubt. But if you know them, if you're like, I've seen your blood, sweat, and tears on top of Machu Picchu Mountain, like you're
connected for life. Yes.
You're connected.
Story.
It's just a very different dynamic. And I know like, some people are better than that at others. Some people are more interested in that than others. That's okay. But I just think it's helpful for longevity.
100%. 100%. Ellen, I know that like you have only been with us a year and a half, but even more so, I think on a day-to-day basis, I probably don't have as much communication just with you, period. So we probably have like lesser relationship than probably you and Kelsey, but also kind of just the obvious truth is that there's an age gap and like we're in different. I always like laugh because I'm just like, wow, man, Ellen is so cool and hip and young, and I'm not. Like it just makes me feel so middle aged. But you know, in this kind of environment, like you're a great person and you're always very kind and you're always very sweet. But do you feel like traveling with us gave you just a different understanding of who we are and how and like affected kind of like how you feel part of this team or how we work together or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think there's no other way to get to know someone better so fast than to, travel with them. And prior to this, I know we had like spent 2 days in San Francisco last year.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the time we've known each other, it was all on Zoom. And while we communicated every week, I think seeing you guys in person, spending time with you, actually having dinners, to Kelsey's point, like it was really beneficial for the team dynamics. It really kind of like also gave me insight of like who you guys are and your stories. And I think that is an important part of a job in a team, is to get to know your team members and in that way. And so yeah, I definitely felt like I got closer to you guys, especially because I live an ocean away.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's nighttime. But yeah, like it was a really great time, spending time together and just like fostering that bonding as a team.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So what you're hearing us say, I think, is this is a value, this is valuable. And if this like big picture goal of like taking whoever you work with across the world for a 10-day trip like seems huge, start small, like find a way to get out of like the work environment and create an easier way to connect and bond. And I think that you will see just a lot of value for your team in that way. And it will benefit in ways that are kind of like hard to put like actual numbers on or anything like that, but like really, really do make a difference in the long term. So yeah, I think it's a very probably not the most critical, but like very high up there in terms of like why these types of trips are really important.
Mhm.
I think the last thing that I wanted to touch on and kind of just discuss, and we've kind of already glazed over it a bit, is how these types of trips that we decide to plan as, a company shape the type of travel we sell. And Ellen, you mentioned this before, like, hey, I traveled here in college. It looked a lot different. And I said, I've traveled a lot of different places that look nothing like what I would give to a client in a proposal. And what I have found over like the last 9 years of this business is that it really is important for these firsthand experiences to take place to help shape the type of travel that we're selling and also give us confidence in how we speak about it and how we showcase kind of the value. And I know that for me, that's always an important thing that I'm trying to do and trying to do more of. But allowing, like I said, our team to do it collectively because we all touch the trips and all influence and impact the trips is really important. So, Kelsey, what was something kind of like that you experienced on the ground in Peru that was like, oh wow, this is was an important thing for me to experience and like help me understand a bit better like why we do this or why we value this or why we share this with clients as like something that they should consider or something like that.
There's like so many things. I don't need to like list out all the things that like we know. Like, yes, you do need a private transfer to pick you up
You
from
do.
the airport. Just pay the extra $100 for the love.
Yes.
Yeah, I think like I said, I could list off a million things, but I think the general it kind of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of having the confidence to be able to say to a client, no, it is worth it for you to do that. And I think especially if you have less years in the industry, if maybe you're a bit younger, like I think about like we kind of span 3 decades here, right? And so I think
Mhm.
like I'll speak for myself. I'm in my mid-30s and I'm like regularly communicating with like old white men in their 70s who have a lot of money. And I'm like,
Right.
no, you should do this.
Right.
You know? And you gotta kind of like, put on some confidence
Yeah.
to do that. And I think like having these experiences, you can more confidently say like, no, it is worth it to like eat at this Michelin star place. It is worth it to have a private guide. It is worth it to have the transfer and things like that. And then I think it also like again, you get a feel for the flow. I think different locations have a different feel. Like obviously if you go to a beach in Mexico, you don't need to like leave room in people's proposals for them to relax because like hopefully that's kind of
The point.
assumed. That's kind of built in. But like I was thinking about our like on the ground experience and being like, okay, the things that I'm thinking about are like, where was it too much? Where was it
Mhm.
not busy enough? Like, where do we need, like, we chatted about this a bit with like our experience with like Machu Picchu and the train and like lines. And I mean, that could be a whole podcast, but just like leaving gaps for people to recharge. People have different needs for that. We've learned that with our clients for sure. Like sometimes people come to us, we're like, this is supposed to be a vacation. Like, I don't know what you're
I
doing.
am overwhelmed just reading the proposal. Ouch, my head hurts.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't how I would want to travel, but that's
Right.
okay. But everyone needs that. And again, it kind of goes back to like our job is to advise and be like, you should probably just like take a beat here. Like you're gonna be pretty tired after you see that thing or whatever that looks like, like this is a little bit of a tangent, but we literally have a client that's doing Christmas markets this December. And I proposed, she had a free day in Munich, and I proposed to her, like, would you be interested in going to see Dachau, the
Mm.
concentration camps? But I said to her, do not schedule anything for afterwards, right? And I know this because I've been there, and
Right.
I personally was like completely and totally emotionally drained for
Right.
24 hours afterwards. And it's completely worth it to see it, but also don't think you're going to be like going
And
to
then,
day one.
yeah.
Like,
Right.
it's not that kind of day. So but being able to say that, and then she was like, absolutely, that's a good call. Like, let's do that. Right. So I think so it's a little bit of a tangent, but knowing when to build in gaps, knowing when
Mhm.
to recommend certain things, again, that just comes from that on the ground experience and just makes us sound like we know what the heck we're talking about.
Yes, for sure. How about you? Is there anything that you experienced on the ground that you felt kind of will help you anticipate clients' needs better or kind of speak more confidently or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat related to Kelsey's point. On the day we saw Machu Picchu the first time, on the itinerary, it looked like the perfect day. We had a later start, saw Machu Picchu. We were scheduled to see Machu Picchu at 3 p.m. And then we had like massages scheduled at 6 p.m. And so it was like, I get to
Oh, well,
see.
how wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It sounded really nice. But I also remember being in Machu Picchu at the top of the mountain and like thinking about that spa appointment. Like, as someone who doesn't like to be late to things, I'm like, are we going to make it? And so, as from a client experience point of view, that taught me the importance of timing and just giving each activity its moment because, like, for a lot of people, Machu Picchu is a once in a lifetime activity.
Mhm.
And I think like to what Kelsey said, it's important to know when to give people that time to just be and breathe right after. And I think that's valuable insight for me, like be as someone who schedules people's dinners and spa appointments, like it gives me that insight of like, well, they need that time to breathe right after, or they
Mhm.
need that gap. And that definitely, like, having that experience helps me confidently like speak about it and know when to push back when clients want to like book one thing after the other. um, and
And they never do that. I don't know
No,
what you're
I know. What are you talking about? They're so chill.
so chill. and so yeah, it just helps us know what's best for them, and I really and lean into that expert knowledge of what would make that their trip more memorable experience at the end.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point because I think what we do and sometimes on my end, I do it just subconsciously, right? Like I'm constantly looking at an itinerary and just being like, too much, take it out. They need more time here, blah, 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 blah. Like just how my brain works, but also how much I've traveled, how much I've planned trips for clients. And sometimes it's just like, yeah, you do something and then the feedback you get was like, this is what happened when we actually did it. And this is why it was a bad idea. And then I take that and make sure it doesn't happen, again. But when we get to experience it ourselves, we get that real time opportunity to be like, oh, this really works. Or this is a different way I can think about it now because I've actually experienced it. And so many times it does have to do with that, like, it's too much. Like, it seems good on paper, but let me tell you, it's just too much. And for all of our roles, we work with partners all the time, but we know that sometimes they just put too much in an itinerary. You're just like, this is too crowded. Like, take it out. But it is on us to make those calls because clients rarely know. And it just feels fun to fit it all in. And when is the next time I'm going to be able to go to this destination? And I'll sleep when I'm dead and whatever they're, thinking. But it's on our end to really be like, let us big picture this and really keep your best interest in mind and really add value in what we're suggesting and the advice we're giving you to make sure that the experience turns out like in the best way possible. And that is a learned skill, but I think experiencing it on the ground in the way that our clients would is the best way to get better at doing that. So I'm glad that you had that experience for yourself. Kelsey, I'm interested because I know, like you said, you are a Europe lover and Europe is your baby. Was there something that, being able to go to South America, have this experience specifically in Peru, where you're just, not, you can still love Europe. I want you to still love Europe, but do you have a new appreciation for a destination that kind of like surprised you in any way? I guess I would say.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think it reminded me how fun it is to be adventurous in like whatever way that means for you. That's going to mean different things. Did I enjoy climbing straight stairs for 3 hours? No, I did not. Was it cool in the end? Yes, it was. But I think like certain things, like we briefly touched on this earlier, but like our ATV day, I think I even told you guys that night, like I was like, this was like my perfect day. It was like we set out at 9 a.m. and we went to the ATVs and it was like this amazing scenery. Like we're like at the foothills of the Andes, going through these fields. It feels so unique and cool. And then we didn't even realize that there would be like kind of a tour component built in. So we still got to see like kind of a cultural archaeological site, have a little bit of time there, get back on the ATVs. And we had this amazing like picnic, bread, just again, a unique, cool experience. And yeah, I mean, that's not really going to happen in Europe. Like that's not, you're not going to have that many miles of like farmers' fields that you're like, I don't know if this is legal.
Right.
I'm just in your field right now. I hope this is okay. And that's not going to happen. I think there's obviously elements of Europe that aren't going to happen in Peru, but vice versa. And I think just the ability to like be surprised. We also all talked about like how cool the city of Cusco was.
Right.
And it felt like we kind of had an afternoon. We all did our own thing. I went to a coffee shop and I was like, this is awesome. I love going to like a new coffee shop in different cities. Ellen found a better coffee shop than me, but I don't want to talk about that. I should have gone with her. She had a cool view, but just like those unique moments, like you can still pull things that you love from these like other, like cafe culture is huge in Europe, right? Like I can pull that and still build that in a different place, but then also like, yeah, have adventure and have like more unique things that you're not able to do. And that's awesome because you do need to continue to push yourself. And sometimes it's hard when you like You're like, I know what I
You know
like.
what you love. Yeah. Yeah.
30, I'm in my 30s. I'm just pretty set now, you know?
That's so funny because I even remember at the beginning of us talking about Peru, you're like, I don't really need to see Cusco.
Yeah. Well, I was like, cities are so whatever. Like
Yeah, like here to see a city. And that you actually ended up liking Cusco. That's really, really funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love this. I think that we really hopefully just shared our experience in terms of like what we gained from this trip and also the value of considering fams that you put together where you can really decide like what you're trying to get out of it and what the benefit is going to be. And it doesn't always need to be the same, but there is something to be said for creating opportunities and experiences for both yourself and your team to grow in both ways, both in their professional capacity, but also interpersonally as well. So thank you guys for just sharing your experience. If you had to kind of leave travel advisors with one piece of advice or something that they should prioritize if they are thinking about heading down this road, planning a fam for their own team or for themselves, do you have anything that you would say to them?
Well, I feel like we benefited a lot by having a conversation before a trip and assigning specific roles for each of us during the trip. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that sets expectations, and it was important to understand our responsibilities ahead of time to distribute that workload so it doesn't overwhelm you, Bree, or you, Kelsey. So I felt like that allowed for a more dynamic and collaborative atmosphere. So for me, yeah, it's that was beneficial. And so, yeah.
That's good. How about you, Kels?
We love some expectation setting around here. Love it. Love a boundary.
Yes.
Expectation setting. It's basically counseling all the time. We've kind of touched on this, but what I had thought about is just again reinforcing. And again, Ellen and I haven't been on quote unquote normal fans. Like we haven't done that, but we've kind of heard from Bree that the temptation is just to kind of say yes to everything that comes across your plate, especially when you're a newer travel advisor. You're like, free trip, heck yes, like I'm there, right? Which 100% that is valid. I think though that what this doing it ourselves and the advice I would give or what it's reinforced for me is plan a fam that A is how you want to travel and B how your clients want to travel because ideally those are aligned. Like not always, but ideally you've marketed yourself and you're attracting clients that are kind of similar to you in a sense. Like they like what you like. Like we're not attracting people who want to go to Disney.
Right.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully stay away, far away, please.
I would not know what to do with you. What's your advice? Don't go.
Don't. Good luck. It's Anaheim. But that's generally speaking probably a little bit of the goal. And so if you're taking a lot of photos, you're posting content, you're building a sense of just confidence in a location, and you're traveling how you like to travel, how you want your clients to travel, that all should align and be very like synergistic. So I think that it would be like spend a little more, plan something that actually really is going to like be of value, maybe say no to another fam, right? Like if it's a timing thing as well. And just invest in that because I think like long term business wise that's going to make the most sense as well.
That's actually really good advice and something I tell our community all the time is that it's so tempting to say yes to quote unquote free travel and not only from and it kind of goes both ways because it's this change in mentality of when you are building your business you stop first of all taking all trip requests because you're like here's the type of travel I want to plan, here's the type of clients I want to work with, and so that's the first no. And then the second no needs to come with like I can't say yes to every opportunity that's just presented to me simply because it's free travel. It really has to be in alignment, and the best way to make sure it's in alignment is to have control over what that trip is, what it includes, where it is, what time you're traveling, how long you're traveling for, how many site inspections you set up per day. All of that becomes in your control and it will be more aligned with what is actually going to further your business goals. And so that's a hard call to make sometimes. Believe me, I know. I have been on many fams where I'm just like, I came for the free meal and it wasn't worth it. And so now I really do believe that the money I'm investing in the types of things I'm saying yes to, better business decisions. And that's important to me because my time is very valuable. And what I'm hoping to do with both my time and my money is make sure that it's in alignment with my goals. And so for me, this is a really big one. Will I still say yes to very, very minimal FAMs in the future? Yeah. Africa's expensive and I want to keep going back.
Yeah.
So that's my next FAM in a couple of weeks.
If it's on the continent of Africa, she'll be there.
Yeah. So that's one. But other than that, I am happy to kind of like take ownership of this part of my business and this expense and make sure that it fits what I need it to. So I am thankful for the experience that we got to have together this year in Peru. And I am hopeful that we have more experiences in the future that are not only beneficial to us personally, but also professionally, and that you guys stick around to enjoy them with me. So thank you guys for coming on the podcast today and sharing our experience. I thought it would just be beneficial for people to hear directly from you and not just me talk for you. So I appreciate you being open again. Open.
Yeah. Anytime, go fire it.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. And I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brie.
Oh, thank you.